Welcome back, seekers of the forgotten. Grab your coffee, get comfortable, because tonight's journey takes us to the coldest, most isolated, and, I'd argue, most secretive place on planet Earth, Antarctica. Let's start where we always start, with what they want you to know. This year, NASA and the Indian Space Agency ISRO finally switched on one of the most powerful radar satellites ever built, called NISAR. And in the summer of 2026, they released their first public images. One of them went viral almost instantly, a strange, colorful formation in East Antarctica that internet users nicknamed the Hummingbird. Officially, NASA explained it as a rocky mountain peak called Nunatak Zater Javshishja, surrounded by fractured glacier ice, its vivid colors simply representing how radar waves bounce off different textures in the ice. Fine, a pretty picture, a rock poking out of a glacier. Nothing to see here, right? Except that's not the only announcement. Just weeks before that, in June 2026, a team of European geologists published a paper in Nature Geoscience revealing something far bigger. Using new radar and gravity data, they discovered an enormous previously unknown geological structure buried under more than 3 kilometers of East Antarctic ice. A fan-shaped network of basins so massive that scientists now believe several separate hidden landscapes they'd mapped over the decades are actually all part of one single ancient system. They're calling it evidence of Antarctica's deep tectonic past, something that formed as the continent slowly rotated and pulled apart from Africa tens of millions of years ago. And this comes right on the heels of another 2026 study, this one mapping tens of thousands of previously unknown hills, ridges, and canyons hidden under the ice sheet, using satellite data combined with the physics of how glaciers flow. Scientists called it the most detailed picture of the hidden Antarctic landscape ever produced. So, to summarize the official story, in the space of just a few months in 2026, we've suddenly gained the most detailed look under the Antarctic ice in human history. Mountains, canyons, ridges, entire buried basin systems the size of small countries, all invisible to us until now. Convenient timing, don't you think? Now here's where I want you to slow down with me, because this is the part nobody in the mainstream coverage seems to dwell on. For decades, we were told that studying what's under the Antarctic ice was basically impossible without physically driving radar sleds across the ice for years at a time, foot by painstaking foot. That's the story we were given: slow, difficult, limited. And then, almost overnight, we go from blurry, incomplete radar tracks to full continental-scale reveals of hidden mountain ranges and fan-shaped basin systems bigger than most European nations. Systems so large that scientists admit they'd been looking at pieces of it for years without realizing it was all connected. Ask yourself, how do you miss something that big? How does an object the size of a subglacial megastructure go unnoticed for decades of research, only to suddenly resolve itself the very same year multiple new radar missions go public? And here's the detail that really gets me. Buried in the coverage of the NISAR Hummingbird image was one small technical note. The radar doesn't just show you the surface of the ice. L-band radar, the kind flying on NISAR, can penetrate through snow and, under the right conditions, image structures beneath it, man-made or natural. That capability is exactly why militaries have used this kind of radar for decades to find buried infrastructure. NASA's own materials confirm the satellite is designed to track changes across Earth's land and ice, but they've been notably quiet on exactly what else that resolution is capable of revealing once it's turned toward the right coordinates. So we have newly declassified level resolution, a rock formation that just happens to look like a delicate symmetrical bird, and a newly announced ancient basin system that, according to the researchers themselves, had been hiding in plain sight for years. I'm not saying it's a hidden city. I'm asking, why does it always take this long to tell us what's already there? Let's take a step back to before satellites, before radar, before any of this modern technology, to a place we've visited together before on this channel. You'll remember from our journey through Atlantis, through Kumari Kandam, through the Younger Dryas Cataclysm, that ancient cultures around the world kept insisting the same thing. A great advanced civilization existed before the last ice age ended, before the floods came, and that its survivors carried fragments of that knowledge to Egypt, to India, to Mesoamerica. Now here's where Antarctica enters that story, and I promise you this isn't just internet speculation. In 1929, a strange Ottoman-era map surfaced in the ruins of the Topkapi Palace, the Piri Reis map, drawn in 1513 by an Ottoman admiral, compiled from a patchwork of far older, now lost source charts. What made it famous wasn't the coastline of South America drawn on it. That part is well documented and unremarkable for a 16th century map. What sparked decades of controversy was a strange southern coastline sketched beneath it, which some researchers, most famously Charles Hapgood, a college professor who corresponded with Einstein himself, argued resembled the coastline of Antarctica, as it would appear without any ice at all, matching, with unsettling accuracy, seismic data of Antarctica's actual bedrock, which wouldn't be properly mapped by science until the mid-20th century. Mainstream cartographers push back hard on this, and they have real points. The southern landmass on the map could just as easily be a distorted, imaginative extension of South America, common on charts of that era. I want to be fair and give you that side too. But it's worth asking, how did any cartographer, ancient or otherwise, even guess at a coastline hidden under a mile of ice, correct or not? And Hapgood didn't stop there. His most famous and most controversial idea was what he called Earth crust displacement, the theory that the entire outer shell of our planet can, under the right conditions, shift dramatically around the molten layers beneath it, changing which parts of the globe sit at the poles. If true, this would mean Antarctica wasn't always a frozen wasteland. It may have sat in a temperate zone, ice-free, habitable, right around the same window of time our other episodes have pointed to, the end of the last ice age, roughly 11 to 12,000 years ago. Suddenly, the timeline lines up in an uncomfortable way. Göbekli Tepe, the Sphinx's water erosion, Sundaland vanishing beneath the rising seas. And now, a continent that some serious credentialed researchers argue may not have always been buried in ice at all. Is it really so strange, then, that people ask what a civilization advanced enough to leave megaliths like Göbekli Tepe might have built somewhere warmer, somewhere now hidden 3 kilometers beneath the ice we're only just learning to see through? And I know some of you are already thinking about it, so let's address it directly instead of pretending it isn't part of this story. The rumors of a mysterious 1938 German expedition to Antarctica and the much larger, very real 1946 American operation that followed it. Operation High Jump, a task force of thousands of personnel, an aircraft carrier, and multiple icebreakers, sent south less than a year after the end of the Second World War. Officially, it was a training and mapping exercise for the U.S. Navy in a hostile polar environment. That's the documented, sourced explanation, and I want to be upfront about that. Officially, the mission was cut short by harsh weather. Unofficially, for decades, rumor has followed the operation like a shadow. Rumors of what exactly they were looking for, or what they found. I'm not going to repeat baseless claims as fact here because that's exactly the kind of embellishment we called out earlier with James Churchward and his invented Nagamaya tablets. Structures don't have to be man-made to be meaningful. Ancient cultures didn't need to be right about the mechanism to be right about the memory. Maybe what lingers in these flood myths isn't a literal blueprint of Antarctica. Maybe it's an inherited, garbled memory of some home the ice eventually swallowed, somewhere, sometime, and Antarctica is simply the last, largest, least explored candidate left standing. So, here's where I leave it with you tonight, the way I always do. We now have the best radar coverage of hidden Antarctic terrain in human history, released within months of each other in the same year. We have mainstream science calling it tectonics, plain and simple. We have centuries-old maps and a discredited but never fully disproven theory about a warmer, unfrozen Antarctica. And we have the same recurring myth, told by cultures who never spoke to each other, about a lost, advanced world swallowed by water and ice. Coincidence? Tectonics doing exactly what tectonics does? Or one more thread in a pattern we've been tracing together for 3 videos now? I don't have the final answer, and honestly, I don't think anyone does yet. But I'd love to know what you think. Drop your theories in the comments, and if you haven't already, go back and watch The Labyrinth of Havara and the Sumerian Kings List. This Antarctica piece slots right into that same puzzle, and I think once you connect all 3, the picture gets a lot harder to dismiss. Next week, we go somewhere I've been saving for a long time. Evidence that this cycle may not be finished. Until then, stay curious, question everything, and I'll see you in the next one.